Welcome to Trailblazers Impact Podcast with inspiring stories of women. I'm Nan McKay, and Dee Dee Strum, my co-host, and I interview ordinary women who have lived extraordinary lives. The women we interview share their inspirational secrets and provide hope and guidance to women of all ages in similar circumstances. Trailblazers Impact chronicles struggles, successes, and the impact of lessons learned from seasoned professionals who have blazed a trail for others to follow. Trailblazers Impact Podcast is featured in the top 20 Trailblazers Trendsetters podcasts by FeedSpot and as one of the top 28 podcasts for women in their 20s by Pretty Progressive. Our website is trailblazersimpact.com, and you can contact us at hello@trailblazersimpact.com. Please follow us on our website and read our blogs while we share the stories.
Good morning, Valarie, and thank you so very, very much for joining us on Trailblazers Impact. This is a podcast program designed to capture the stories of women like yourselves, trailblazing women who have broken through not just glass ceilings, but cement blocks with that determination that they were going to achieve their goal. And if there were any barriers, they would go over the barrier, under the barrier, around the barrier, or damn well go through the barrier. And you certainly fit the bill. A graduate of West Point, retired military lieutenant colonel, and I could just go on and on with your credentials. But I really want you to have the opportunity to share with our listeners your story. So I'd like to start, Valarie, and it's Valarie Austin, lieutenant colonel, retired, U.S. Army. I'd like you to start by sharing with us where you grew up, how you started out in life, and who were those childhood influencers, or what were those childhood influences that you now think in retrospect may have put you on that path that led you to West Point in what I assume would have been your teenage years.
Well, thank you so much again for having me on the program. I really appreciate that. And just to go back to my childhood, my mother was my single most role model. She was a very strong woman. She was a single parent at the time, and she worked, which back in the 60s was somewhat unusual in that she had to be the sole breadwinner for our family. Later on, she married my stepfather, and he was a great man in that he had a master's degree, again, when that was unheard of for an African-American to have a master's degree, and he worked for a public television station. So they were my encouragement, my support, my love, and everything that I learned primarily from them in terms of being practical and also making sure that I set standards and goals, and I found a plan on how to reach them. Another part of that was I grew up in Miami, Florida, and we had a very close-knit family. I grew up in Overtown, and my great-grandparents was the influence there because they were Bahamian in descent, and they had a tradition of dignity, self-respect, and there was a military legacy in that my grand-uncles, they had all served in World War II. So the lexicon in our family was that of service and community. So growing up in that type of environment, I couldn't help but want to be someone that could be looked at as a leader, as a role model. And so when I had the opportunity to go to West Point, and how that occurred was I was going to Miami Edison Senior High School, and I met the recruiter from West Point. And at the time I was valedictorian because my parents wouldn't have accepted anything less than great academics. And he told me about West Point, and I'd heard of it before, again, with that legacy of military service. And my parents were like, oh, this will be fantastic. But I'd also been accepted to Northwestern and the Naval Academy and other places. But West Point, its name was premier, especially with my family. So when I applied, I was accepted. I received a congressional support from Congressman Lehman of my district. And we went off to West Point, of all places. And it was a great experience. My parents and my sister went with me that first day. My aunt was there too. It was like a family affair. So when we went into this called Mikey Stadium, the superintendent met us and he said to the effect of, look to the left, look to the right. someone on one of your sides is not going to survive. One of you is not going to be here when we get down to the end, which would have been a class of 1987. So when my parents were separated from me, it was like a separation where they told the parents, it was like a little introduction, and they said, okay, you guys go to the right, and then the cadets are going to go to the left. And I wasn't there, but my parents said that on the bus that was taking them on the tour around West Point, that there were many, many sniffles and crying, and that wasn't just the women. So it was a major separation. So again, my family was very supportive, very loving, and that military service and community, that's what shaped me growing up in Miami, Florida. And to this day, I tell stories of my mother. She didn't take any stuff. She really expected the best from each of us, and we had to perform, and that's how it was.
Well, just out of curiosity, how many siblings were there when you said expected the best of all of us?
My sister and I, my younger sister. So it was just us, but because it was a close-knit family, I also had cousins that we would hang around, and they were very similar in ages. And so again, it was just with the family. We had uncles. We would meet for Sunday dinners. So there would be uncles, there would be cousins, there would be so many people that you always had somebody to hang out with. And again, the expectation was that you were going to do the best. There wasn't any slacking off.
I like that. So in a family with two girls, they didn't have a son to offer up for military service, but by God, one of our girls can do this.
This is true. Well, actually, my mother did say that. She said, you know what? I love you, but if you had been a boy, we could have had you go and do football at West Point. but that's okay. You still got to West Point. You didn't go for football, but that's okay.
I love that. Not only would she have the expectation of West Point in the service, but do the football too. I mean, just be a winner on and off the playing field. So yes, and that led to your career, because you are a career military, a retiree, with, I think, 22 years of military service?
I have 21 years of military service, again, retired as a lieutenant colonel. And when I first started, my parents, again, were at West Point to pin on my second lieutenant's bars. And at that time, again, class of 1987, the first women had graduated in 1980. So I was standing on their shoulders with my foray into the military, and it was a great experience. I was stationed in places such as Germany, South Korea, Georgia. I went to military intelligence training in Arizona, and the people I met, the experiences I had, still has an impact on me, and that I have a love of travel, a love of meeting people, love of interaction. So I thoroughly enjoyed being there and in the military. And while I was there, I actually was able to go, and I have no military in debt. I was able to go back and get my master's, a master's of public administration from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And then after my military service, I was able to go and get an associate's degree from Montgomery College here in Maryland. And then I was able to transfer to the University of Maryland College Park for the continuation of my second bachelor's degree. So the military truly has been very good to me in terms of, again, the experiences. I was deployed to Saudi Arabia and Iraq during Desert Shield, Desert Storm. And that in and of itself gave me the opportunity to see that not a lot of countries are like here. We were there to support them in terms of getting rid of Saddam Hussein. But I always tell the story of when I was in a grocery store. We had been sent there to get some little food, little trinkets while we were over in Saudi Arabia. And when we went in, it was a line of us. We're all in our military uniform. And there was a storekeeper. And I know it's a religious thing. It's a cultural thing. But he was standing at the cash register, and he was shaking all the male soldiers' hands. And he was saying, "Thank you so much for coming and liberating us." So I walked up to the cash register, and he stepped back. And one of his employees stepped up. And the guy sort of gave me the question, or just made the statement of how much it was. I paid him. And then he took my money. He stepped back. I walked away. And as I'm walking away, the male soldier behind me, the store clerk, walks back up and he shakes his hand. And he personally bags his items. So with that culture, women are not as free. They have to go around with a male companion. Before they couldn't drive. This is just recently that they could drive. So that interaction taught me that United States, I'll say the United States in that respect, pushes women, allows women to be all that they can be, just to take that coin phrase, to be all they can be and do what they need to do in terms of heights, in terms of jobs, in terms of their lifestyle. And so the military, again, has really opened my eyes to you can be almost anything in the United States. It's just a matter of the hard work that's needed.
Good. Well, thank you for sharing that. There are several things that you've recounted that I now want to follow up on. The first being your journey through academia. With the 4 degrees that you earned, were all of those earned as a benefit of your government service? I think you said you were in the military when you did your Master's of Public Administration?
Yes.
And then afterwards, did you do any degrees using your GI Bill benefits, or were they all done while you were active duty?
Well, when I was active duty, I went back for my Master's of Public Administration because I wanted to obtain a job as an ROTC instructor at Georgetown University. And in order for you to be an instructor of the cadets there, you had to have at least a master's. So in that respect, I did go back to university. I did go to the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and obtained that master's degree. And as soon as I was able to secure it, then I was able to go to Georgetown and teach ROTC.
And all of this was while you were still active duty?
I was still active duty. So
they paid, my bottom line being, they paid for you.
Yes.
To get your Master's of Public Administration.
Yes.
And then part of your paid duties while in the military was the opportunity to be an ROTC instructor.
Yes.
At Georgetown University.
Yes.
So all of that came as part of that career. So in addition to doing your troop service time, as I would call it, overseas, stateside on domestic duty, you had the opportunity to become an educator.
Yes, and I thoroughly enjoyed it in that it wasn't the GI Bill necessarily, it was called tuition assistance. So the military assisted me in paying for that tuition. I paid a little bit of money to, again, put some skin in the game. But again, I was able to get that master's degree to continue as being a leader and an educator. So that is correct. And so when I retired, then I was looking at, all right, what is going to be my next step? Because it was during 2008 when the height of the recession, it was actually the beginning of the recession, and everybody was having economic problems with finding jobs, with a lot of companies were cutting back on people. It was just not a good time. So I decided I was going to go back to school. And there's also statistics that when the economy goes down, the enrollment at community colleges go up because people are going back to get skills, qualifications, and training. So I went to Montgomery College in Maryland. This is when I retired, 2008. And I went back and obtained an associate's degree in networking. And so what that meant was I could do IT and desktop. So I could fix your computer. I can clean your computer. People can call me up and I can tell them what I need to do to fix their computer. So I learned those skills. And again, a lifelong learner. So this was something that was fantastic. And to this day, I use those skills to make sure my computer runs well. And so once I finished with the associate's degree at Montgomery College, the next step for me was, well, why don't I go to a local college and get a second bachelor's degree? So I decided on the University of Maryland, College Park because of its proximity to me. And then it also has a very good program in that I was going to do computer science. Now, what I didn't realize with the University of Maryland, College Park is that they also have a strong military population. And they have this organization that's called Turp Vets, where they make outreach to military people. They have a little area that you can do your own studying that they set up. Someone gave a donation for that to happen. They have Veterans Day. It was just a great atmosphere to be at and be a veteran. So I went back there and I started off as computer science and I went actually geography. And this is when I used my GI Bill for the Montgomery College degree and also the University of Maryland, College Park. So the military is a wonderful resource for career choices. And at the same time, I have no student loan debt. I hear students today have student loan debt, and I have none. So the military is a very great thing. And, there's still the bias that people have against the military. Oh, I don't want my son or daughter to go into the military. But what they don't realize is that it's service. You can go on active duty. You can go National Guard, Army Reserve. For every civilian job, there is a military counterpart. It's just a matter of, it's a career. So, of course, you have to do the research. If you're going to go into the military, you have to do the research to see if this is what you want. So I always tell young people that if you don't like your mother and father telling you what to do, the military is twice that, telling you what to do. So you have to verify that this is a career choice that you want to make, not just for the money, because for the money, you're not going to like it. But if you have a sense of duty, honor, and service, yes, the military is the right thing for you. Of course, if you do the research. So University of Maryland, College Park, as I'm there, I meet a lot of young people and my classmates, and I see a trend that I found disturbing. There were, three trends, actually. There were young people who were dropping out of school because they ran out of money. They had loan debt. Some had loan debt. The second type were at college because, we tell our children, go to college, go to college. Instructors, their parents, society, go to college. And then when they got there, were like, why am I here? What's the purpose of being here? And then the third trend was that there was a mismatch. They were going for a particular major, which is all the courses that you're going to get toward a degree. But then when they got the degree, because 20 years ago, if you had a degree, someone would employ you, they were shocked that they couldn't be employed because they didn't have the knowledge, skills, training, qualifications that the employers wanted. So those three trends are what caused me to write. I'm a published author. My book, The Student's Comprehensive Guide for College and Other Life Lessons. I also give workshops to high schoolers and their parents to discuss with them that the demographic is that high school students, college-bound students, they're going to be going with some type of schooling in waves, but we need to find out what their career choice is, whatever that career choice is, where just like you're going to investigate the military, you're going to research careers. And we do this in high school to the point where you're researching it in high school. And when you research it in high school, okay, now let's see what's the schooling that's going to get you there? Because if you want to be a mechanic or electrician, you really do not need a 4-year degree. You probably need an associate's degree, or you can get that type of training in high school. But we need to explore that. So once you get the schooling down, then how are we going to pay for it? So that's when you're in 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, you have that communication or dialogue. Really, your parents should have that dialogue with you to say, okay, we're going to be able to pay a little bit of it. We're going to be able to pay a full ride, or you should be having a skin in the game with maybe you working or you applying for scholarships and grants. So it has to be a continuation of career, schooling, and how we're going to pay for it, as opposed to what kids do now. And again, this is something we put in their mindset. They determine the schooling. Oh, I'm going to go to Harvard, or I'm going to go to University of Chicago, or I'm going to go here. Then they say, okay, how are we going to pay for it? And then they get the degree. Now I'm ready for the career. I'm ready for, and that's complete opposite of what it should be, because it should start with the career. It should be exposure. All our kids should be exposed to some type of career. When you talk about careers, there's always this dividing line where educators and parents, they go, well, let's look at the school you're going to go to. No, it's not a dividing line. It's a career. What is that career that you're interested in? Funeral director, airline pilot, police person, mechanical engineer, computer scientist. What is it that you want to be? Then we could talk about schooling, and we can talk about how you're going to pay for it. And so I'm passionate about it. This is actually my passion. That's why I wrote the book, because it just stands out to me that the parents they're anxious to make sure that their children have a successful life. The mindset has become, you only have a successful life if you go to these particular schools, which isn't true. I actually did a workshop where a parent pointed out, there are a gazillion schools. There are so many schools across the United States. Also, there's schools in Europe. There are schools in other places. So if you find out what the career is, we can look at what's the best fitting school, and then we can look at how we're going to pay for it. And I keep saying that over and over again, because again, even though I give these workshops, there's still parents who don't get it. Oh my gosh, how do I get my child into Penn State? Okay, well, let's start off with, why do they want to go to Penn State? Is it because their friends are going to Penn State? Is it because they went on a college visit during their summer of their junior year and they couldn't figure out, oh, okay, well, this is like the best school of me because I've seen 10 during this college visit search, and that's the only one that really stands out to me? Or are we actually looking at, again, is this the best school based on the career, or based on what my child wants to do?
Oh, thank you. I was thinking as you were talking, I asked one question and she did exactly what I needed her to do. She started running with your story, your passion, your advice. I want to slow you down now to share with the listeners, what is the title of your book and where can they get your book?
The title of my book is The Student's Comprehensive Guide for College and Other Life Lessons. It is available on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and other major retailers like Walmart.com. It's just a matter of 2 pieces of information, my spelling of my name and also the title of the book. But if they just want to know a quick website, they can go to www.amazon.com/author/Valarie, Valarie_R_Austin, AUSTIN.
And I'm pleased to say that I believe that very soon they will be able to just very easily go to trailblazersimpact.com, and under our space for book selections, they can click on there and it'll take them right to where they can purchase your book through Amazon.com. So we're hoping that will be a future, very near-term future rollout where our listeners will be able to gain easy access to your book. And you've shared what you've written about with such passion. I want to take a deeper dive into one aspect of your sharing this morning, which is the book also, I believe, does give advice to parents as well as to students. Is that correct?
It actually is written toward the student. And the reason why I did that is when you are publishing a book, especially a nonfiction book, you have to determine what your audience is. And your audience provides focus for your book. Because if someone's reading your book and they go, this has no relation to me, then it sort of turns them off to you as a future writer that they want to purchase. So when I was going through the process of writing the book, I had, I'll call them beta readers. These are people who read your book and provide comments about, the storyline, the synergy of what you're writing. They just provide feedback. So when I was writing my book, some of the feedback came back that I had written toward the student, I had written for the parent, and then it was almost like a memoir because I put little tidbits about my family, specifically my mother. So through the discussion, I was able to focus it down to the student and actually speak to them. So I talk about drugs and alcohol and interaction with instructors and financial literacy, which is so important that they know. And then my next book, I can break out into the parents' book to talk directly to them. So it's high schoolers and college now.
Would you recommend that a parent read the book before the student reads it so they have an understanding of the advice and guidance you're providing? Or should the student read it and be encouraged to discuss it with the parent?
Whenever I sell the book and I'm talking to a parent, I tell them that, yes, they should read it because it's almost like giving your child a gun. Here's the gun. Now you shoot it. So no, it has to be a detailed discussion. Okay, I've read this book. I understand what's in it. So let's have some talking points here. Then the child, of course, reads it and even broadens the discussion. So I always say there has to be a synergy of parent and child to know what we're talking about here. So yeah, it is important that the parent reads it also with the child.
Good. So let's talk a little bit about your learning lessons. What did you learn in becoming a publisher? What are some of the do's or don'ts that you could now share with others that are either in the process of writing a book to be published or who have just been procrastinating for decades, like myself, about the book that they want to write? What can I gain from this interview with you as I get ready to really to follow through on that commitment to myself that I have a book in me that I need to write? What does it take? What did you learn? What are some of the places that you would send someone like me to visit on the internet or in person to learn about becoming an author and a publisher?
All right. Actually, I'm giving a nonfiction workshop. I'm the member at large of the Maryland Writers Association, which is an organization that promotes writers, and they have a conference in March every year. This one's March 28th and 29th, 2020. So I'm giving a nonfiction writing workshop to the Montgomery County chapter, December 14th. The gist of my discussion is that you have to find if you're a writer, you're thinking about being a writer, your passion. What is it as a subject that you find interesting? So you can maybe read something in an article and you go, wow, I wonder if there's more information on that. Or you see it on TV, or it could be something that happened in your family. So it's just a matter of you have to find the subject first. And it has to be something that you have a passion about, because it can conceivably take you, some writers, a year, 2 years, 3 years. And it took me actually 4 years to write my book, because I started off Montgomery College and I started seeing things. And then by the time I finished University of Maryland College Park, I had a great outline with a lot of little points that I had made. So that's another thing. As you go through whatever your subject is, and I'm talking nonfiction. With fiction, there's a difference in the writing style. Fiction it comes from your imagination. Nonfiction, it comes from, as I stated, some type of article or something that you've experienced, or maybe something you've seen. So once you do that, then there comes the research. That entails, okay, maybe I need to look on the internet and read a couple of articles about this particular subject. Maybe I can check out some books that talk about this particular subject, talk to experts on this subject. So again, it goes back to, what is the subject? What is your passion with this subject? And then you start the research and you start taking notes. And one thing I do mention is, when you're taking these notes, you have to make sure that you keep very organized works for nonfiction specific. The reason why you do that is because you don't want to be charged with plagiarism, that you have read something and you just picked it up in one big format of a paragraph and stuck it in your book. So you have to follow that format of either MLA or Chicago style, whatever style is that you're going to have for your notes and your bibliography. Okay, so that's important. Okay, once you have your notes organized, then you can start the paring down process. As you're looking through your notes, you have to say, okay, is this still pertinent to when I originally had the idea? If it's pertinent, let me keep it in there. If it's not, then let me discard it. Maybe it can be used for another book in the future. So my book, for example, had a gazillion pages, not a gazillion pages. It had too many pages for the type of book I was writing. So I had to pare it down. So I had, again, that information about the parents, and then that information for the autobiography. So all that had to be pulled away. Okay, once you pare it down, then I tell every writer who is even contemplating a book, write 2 to 3 pages, write. In the morning, you brush your teeth, write, get dressed for work. That's Monday. Tuesday, you get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you write 2 or 3 pages, go to work. On the weekend, you get up, you write a couple of 4 pages, brush your teeth, go out, come back in, maybe write 2 or 3 pages every single day, or maybe 5 times a day, 5 times a week, write. Because if you don't write, you'll never have anything. So you write, and that's what a writer is. You write until the point where, and I've read that if you write 2 or 3 pages a day, within 6 months, you'll have a book. May not be a perfect book, because then we get to the next section. Then you have to start the editing process. And the editing process includes getting someone to read your book. Now, your friends and family are going to get sick of you. They're going to get sick of you. Can you read this couple of paragraphs? Can you read this couple of pages, this chapter, and on this section, there are. But what can help with that is if you join organizations such as Maryland Writers Association, or some libraries have writing clubs. So you join these types of things that the people who are attending, they're also writing. So because they're also writing, they'll be willing to read your couple of pages and you'll be able to read their couple of pages. So it helps. And again, you're looking for tone. You're looking for, does this make sense? Is this a book that has readability? So once you get through that portion of, does it have readability? That's the editing part of it. Then we're going to get to maybe a professional editor. And the professional editor is once you have this big mass of paper and you've read through it and you organize it and you think it's a very good book, then you're going to go to the editors that are, and there are different types of editors, proofreading editor, just different types of editors. You go through and they're going to do the red pen and oh, this spelling error, the tone here, can you make this sentence better? This doesn't make any sense. So they'll go through and they'll clean it up. They'll clean it up. And hopefully it's a professional editor who is familiar with your topic. That also helps too. So once that's done and you've had it professionally edited, and I'm not going to talk about prices or anything like that. Once you get that done and you think you have a book, then you have to go through the formatting portion of it. The formatting, you take the form of, am I going to have an ebook? Am I going to have a paperback? Am I going to have an audio book? So there are various ways. And I'm only talking from a self-publishing perspective, because there are traditional publishers that do a lot of these things, okay, where you would go through an agent with your book, and then the agent would get you with a traditional publisher and they would help you to, massage the book to make it ready for prime time. I'm talking from the self-publishing perspective. That's where I come from. Once you figured out what the formats are going to be, then you have to figure out what's the platform. Okay? A lot of authors put it on Amazon because it's like the big gorilla in the room, and they post the book there. That in and of itself, once it's published, then if it's a paperback, you can take and give it to individuals to actually, oh, I'm a published, because it's different of a writer and a published author. A writer writes, as we stated, people who have been writing for years, they just started writing. And then a published author is someone who actually has a book that they can give to someone, or they can send them to a website where the person can look at it and say, okay, this is a book. But I have to say, when you're doing the editing process, make sure that your book is in a standard format. And what I mean by that, when you're doing your research and you're reading other books in that genre, make sure that when you put your book together, that you're going to have an ISBN number, which is the unique number that states what your book is. And if books have the same title, the ISBN is going to distinguish between the two. Make sure, and I'm talking nonfiction, you have a table of contents. You have an author biography. People want to know your credibility. I've seen books that didn't have an author's bio. You want to make sure that if it's a nonfiction book, that you have the standards, such as a bibliography. You have notes. Where did this information come from? So there are many different things that when you're self-publishing that you learn. And one thing I really will stand out to is I published my book in Spanish. So I had to get a translator to translate the book into Spanish. Now that's all well and good, but I don't speak Spanish. So I had a problem with the index in that it was translated word for word, how you would translate individually that particular phrase. But then I had to go back and do a word search to actually find out where it was in the book and then put the page number. So that added more on. And so I learned from that experience. So as a self-publisher, there are so many things that you learn that when you have a traditional publisher, you have a team. But again, to get into that market where you have an agent who will actually help you to get published, it sometimes be difficult. The bar is very hard. And there's nothing wrong like that. I think J.K. Rowling's went to she wrote the Harry Potter books. She went through a whole lot of traditional publishers before that one saw that spark. And I'm sure the other 11, and I'm just making up the number 11, are upset with themselves that they said bye on her books. So again, writing has to be a passion. It has to be something where you're trying to inform, you're trying to persuade. Your passion, you want to help someone with a problem. And writing really can be a lot of fun. It can be cathartic. And I thoroughly enjoy it in that it's not necessarily the author, it's the audience. And if for my audience, it's the high school students and the college bound that I truly hope to help and inform and give them guidance as to this is what I've learned in my experience and what I hope that I can impart to you to help you through going through your college journey or your career selection. And with that career selection, what schooling and how are you going to pay for it?
Wow, you have certainly provided a wealth of direction and guidance for lazy would-be writers like myself. And bringing the interview to a close, and I thank you for the time that you've given for this interview, but in bringing it to a close, can you suggest a couple of internet websites? Where can someone go for the kind of information and direction that you're saying that you need to have to inform yourself on how to structure something or how to ensure that you're doing the right style of writing? Did you rely on any particular website or blogger to give you that kind of steam?
I will say that from being a lieutenant colonel and having to do a lot of presentations, that I have made it down pat in terms of research. And the first place that I research is the internet. Google. It gives you a wealth of information whereby if you put in a subject, it will spit it out. Once it spits out articles or books that you might want to look at, then it's incumbent upon you to say, well, who wrote this article? Let me see if they have any more articles on this particular subject that they might be able to put. Maybe they're an expert. Now, we're not talking Wikipedia. Wikipedia is great. It is great. But you want something that when you put in your book or you look at it, that you know that there's a source of credibility to it. Okay? So I want to say CNN.com, MSN.com, Fox.news, the news programs, PBS. I love PBS. If you can go and you can see videos from the new PBS NewsHour, you have, it's just a wealth of information. PBS is, again, and that's a great resource. But Google it first, see what spits out, because normally the most credible ones are at the top, most. And then once you start getting that information, then let's look at some articles. And then your local library. I love the library. If you're interested in something, you can go to the librarian and say, this is a subject I'm looking at. Here are 5 books. You can look at the format of the book. You can look at the information. Writers organizations such as the Maryland Writers Association, you can look on their website. They have workshops every single month, except November or December. Every single month where they talk about, oh, this is how you meet an agent. This is how you get rid of the body if you're a fiction writer. This is how you do this. And so it's wonderful. And then they have a conference every year, which they bring in various people and they have workshops. So the information is out there. It's just a matter of looking for it and talking to people, especially if you go to, oh my God, book fairs. You go to book fairs, and if you have a certain genre that you like, I think that's where I met you. If you have a genre that you like, we just had the Baltimore Book Festival. There's the Gaithersburg Book Festival. There's the Kensington Book Festival. I go to a lot of these book festivals, and there's a plethora of different types of genre and authors. And you can talk to them and say, well, I'm interested in writing a book, because they're willing to take, now they're there to sell books. Well, I'm talking to them for 15 minutes, but they're willing to give you their card or discuss with you, oh, this is what I did to write a book. So, and then it helps too if you buy their book. But what I'm saying is that there are so many resources out there. It's just a matter of taking the time and opening your eyes to, if you want to write a book, okay, I just need to go out and find out what's there. Does that answer your question?
It certainly does. And I know I said that as I bring this interview to a close, and it sounded like that was going to be my last question, but I do have one more, just one more question. And I remembered as you were talking something I wanted to follow up on that you said earlier, which was all of the writing you did to prepare your first book. And then you had to sort of pare it down to stay in scope with the audience, which was the students. But you made reference earlier on than that to your next book. And my curiosity then was piqued with, is your next book going to come from the information that you weren't able to make a part of the first book? Is it like all of the writing you did when you were doing the 2 to 3 to 4 pages a day, and after 6 months you had so much, and you said I had to then sort of, pare it down, narrow the scope to the audience I was trying to reach, which at that time was the college students. So with all of that excess, do you find now in reflection that it has helped to fuel the start of your second book? Or is your second book totally unrelated to the first?
It is a continuation because, again, I had to pare down, but then I actually give career and college workshops that many libraries, many organizations. I just did Maryland STEM Festival at one of the high schools. So I give these career and college workshops. And when I pass out a survey and I ask them questions about what would you like to hear more about? What did you not know about? And when I get back the feedback, when I go, gosh, this is something that is really a topic that is burning in people's minds. And so from that, I'm going to resource it in that I'm going to address those types of issues that people haven't talked about before. So again, for example, which I find surprising, there are some young people when they come to the workshops, they put on their stuff that I would like to hear more about. How do I apply for colleges? And I go, wait a minute, this is something that would be addressed by the high school to say, okay, well, there's the common application. You go to the college website and you see what they want in terms of applying, and there's the application process. So somewhere there's a disconnect. So that discussion may be a part of my book for parents. Okay, you're looking at particular college based on the career. Let's go to the website and let's see what we'd have to do for applying to colleges. And this could be something that could be done in 9th, 10th grade. You're not relying completely on the high school. So again, it's just an expansion of what I already had, but also my experiences now with doing the workshops.
Well, I can say that in summary, and as I do close this interview, that my biggest takeaway on the writing side has been two things, which is first, it's not a one and done deal, that you can find that in the start of writing your first book, that you already have the makings for what can become a second book. And that in your case, that information still exists because you've kept your notes from those days when you were doing 3 to 4 pages a day, couldn't use it all. And you've now informed it because of your learning experiences and getting the feedback from the students who have attended the workshops and done the evaluations. And so you've been sort of data mining even as you've continued the process of rolling out the book, sharing it with others. And it sounds like a great strategy that someone else could essentially mimic, which is looking at how do I collect information in a way that can allow me to use it as the first book as a launch pad. And if I'm really a writer, then there can be a second book in me or even a third book in me. And it sounds like you're on a roll for your second and third books just based on some of the things that you've thrown out that you now want to do some more research on yourself and share more information with. So I thank you for sharing your passion, for sharing your journey, and mostly for sharing your advice, which can benefit the parents of students, the students themselves, and even those who are educators or key influencers in the lives of younger people that will be going off to college or seeking, as you say, that lifelong learning experience, which means that you can always go back and get another degree. You can learn another skill set. And you've named several that you went on to earn unrelated to your initial interest in terms of academia, geography, a degree in geography, a degree in IT networking, more classes in computer science. Mm-hmm. And so you are a true testament to the notion that lifelong learning is the definition of success.
And may I make one point, though?
You certainly may.
When I speak to young people and I say, well, what would you like to do? I also get back, I want to go into art. I want to go into engineering. I want to go into medicine. And I have to stop them. I say, I want you to know that's an industry. That's an industry. we have to drill down within that industry and find the occupation. And the difference between a career and occupation, career is something going to be 20, 30 years down the line. An occupation is, I can ask, okay, music industry. I'm a music teacher. I can ask that music teacher, how much is the typical salary? So they can tell you, oh, is this something I want to do? Because I might not be able to live on it. You can ask, what's the work environment? Oh, I'm going to be inside. I'm going to be teaching young people. I can ask, what's the schooling requirement? Well, I'm going to have to go back and get a master's degree or even something more so than that. So young people have to realize it's not just an industry. What is the occupation within that industry that you want to pursue? You want to be an engineer? There's a mechanical engineer. There's an aerospace engineer. There's a computer engineer. There are so many different engineers that you have to drill down. And even if that's a starting point for engineering, the best thing about it is that you can do the research. Do it in high school. And there's so many resources there, again, to help you in that journey.
Well, thank you. Thank you for those parting words, and I shall certainly let you have that last word. Thank you again, author Valarie Austin, and we look forward to continuing this conversation with you at a future date. On behalf of myself and my co-host, Nan McKay, who also is a volunteer with the Tucson Book Fair every year, book festival. She's a great believer in books and book festivals, so I know she'll be excited to hear about your passion for showing up as an author at those book fairs. So thank you again, and I will be talking with you very, very soon.
Thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed listening to another story of the impact of trailblazers. Visit our website at trailblazersimpact.com and connect with us at hello@trailblazersimpact.com. And remember, you must learn a new way to think before you can master a new way to be.